Thank you. Thanks everyone for taking time and joining my session. So I'm going to give a quick intro about myself and then we will jump into the session. I'm open to questions anytime and you can use the chat window if you would like to put your questions and we can take them as I pause for the questions. My name is Ashish. I'm located in Australia right now. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night. I'm not sure why why where we are in the night time zone. So thanks everyone for taking time. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to talk about Microsoft 365 security and monitoring automation with Graph API. Now, some things around the event. So it's really great to have these sort of events happening. Thanks to Renee and the whole team, and thanks to sponsors with whom we can bring this up to you. And there are prizes and quizzes as well. So if you would like to win some prizes, please use this QR code, and this is getting sort of a normal to scan the QR code, and you will be able to get to the quiz and you will be able to win some prizes. And the many sessions you will join, the many more answers you can give, and the better chance to win a prize. Now, let me jump and talk about what I'm going to cover in terms of the session today. So I'm going to talk about the Microsoft Graph API, very specifically around the Microsoft 365 security and monitoring. Then I'm going to talk about as how you can use the Microsoft Graph API in your security solutions to integrate with it. Then we're going to look at the entities as what options and objects it can cover. It provides where we can monitor and control the security of the M365. And then we're going to look at some of the demos. And then I will leave some sort of a 15 minutes at the end so that we can discuss more interactively around the Q&A. So let me start with the introduction about the Microsoft Graph API. I'm pretty sure many of us may know about the Microsoft Graph API, and many of us may not know about the Graph API. So what happened in the Microsoft 365? We have SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams now, and Exchange, and it's expanding platform. And then we were talking about the applications to leverage the API to connect to these services in the M365 and do the work. Previously, there used to be multiple API endpoints for these different services. What Microsoft Graph did is created a unified endpoint, and it is a REST-based API. So you can consume this API in your any application, whether you are building within SharePoint, within Teams, or even on a standalone web application to leverage the Azure AD authentication or talk to SharePoint or OneDrive or do anything. So it is a unified API for the M365 platform. In the M365 platform, we also have devices, and now we are getting into the security and compliance space as well. And that's where Microsoft Graph is getting upgraded and expanded every day with these new endpoints. Now, specific to the security and compliance, what happened? Microsoft has started to create a sort of a subset within the Microsoft Graph API, and they are calling very specifically it as Microsoft Graph Security API. And the idea of these endpoints around security is to provide the capability to look upon the alerts, look upon the secure score, look upon different threat indicators, build some actions, and do more for our internal solutions, whether we are writing within the organization or a partner is developing for a customer, or maybe for the third-party ISVs. So, example, Palo Alto or any other Splunk systems, they can leverage the same Graph API, and then they can talk to the internal to the Microsoft 365 system, and then connect to different applications or build around different scenarios. And that's where the Microsoft Graph Security API comes into the picture with a specific endpoint. And that's where it is going to be very easy to look upon the Microsoft Graph API security capability and work with different entities. We will cover these entities in the session later. Now, in terms of where I can use it, Microsoft Graph is big. Then we are coming to some smaller section of the Microsoft Graph Security API. Now, as you know, in the security space, there are four very important steps. First is the identification. The second one is the detection. Third one is the response. And fourth is recovery. Now, in terms of Microsoft Graph API, you will be able to start and understand if there are any security alerts coming from different sources. So maybe an alert coming from Azure AD, and then at the same time, the alert is coming from an end user device. And Microsoft Graph can read both the data, and then you can correlate and coordinate with it. The second place where you can look upon is the contextual information, and Microsoft Graph is very good in providing a context-based information. So for example, if you're looking into the device alert, and then you need maybe example for user login details, maybe you need user OneDrive alerts, maybe you look upon the device activities, and that's where the Microsoft Graph can go and look upon these related endpoints using the device itself. And then you can navigate that graph or map of the objects. The third is the automation. Now, yep, we know that user machine got infected with a virus, and user have been trying to access some confidential files. User account is compromised. What you can do about it? Now, a lot of in SOC systems, let me explain the SOC. So in these security operations centers, where you might have seen the big screens, big TVs on the screen, and a lot of individuals are working and looking at those alerts, rather than having a person acting upon it. And it takes some time for a person to look at the alert and act upon it. You can automate it using Power Automate or Logic Apps. You will be able to read an alert, and straight away using that alert, you can trigger a Power Automate flow behind the scene and maybe block the user account, or maybe block the device activities, or maybe keep monitoring the device activities and put a alert on the high severity. So you can automate those SOC operations. The other details is about the sending the the alert details. Now, what happens in Microsoft system? You have Microsoft Intelligence running behind the scene automatically, but at times you may hear about some files or some threat indicators need to be sent specifically to some Defender locations or some third-party systems to look upon it very specifically. You can use the Microsoft Graph API to connect to those systems and send those extra information so that you will be sure that, okay, this may be not a malware, or this may be an internal application or a third-party trusted application. Then, as we were talking to automate, you can invoke some actions on the Microsoft Defender to take upon the alerts which Microsoft Defender system is generating. And that's where you can go and use the Microsoft Graph API. Now, also, this is all about consuming. Now, to provide extra information, for example, in the SOC platform, we have something called as Azure Sentinel, which is a SOC and SIEM and SOAR platform, where you can go and look upon the information and also act upon it. Microsoft Graph can provide extra information if required in that SIEM and SOAR platform, so that you can go ahead and build some notebooks or also the runbooks, which will add more extra information in your context and can provide you better context about the alert or the malware attack options. So this is where the Microsoft Graph can go and provide end-to-end scenarios where you can use upon it. Now, the important piece is, okay, this works great. I can use it at multiple places. This provides me a lot of placeholders or the endpoints where I can connect. But how do I use it? The important point about getting started is really good to know, because then you will be quick to go and consume this information. So to do any of these things in the system, you can either use code like a normal C# code or the client-side code. You can use PowerShell scripts. You can use the code-free automation tool, which I was talking, the Power Automate or Logic apps. You can also connect directly Power BI because Microsoft Graph comes as a connector. So you can build a dashboard in the Power BI and directly use the Microsoft Graph to pull the reports like secure score or compliance score available. The next bit is about the Jupyter notebooks. I'm not sure if you have I'm not sure if you have looked upon the Azure notebooks. Microsoft provide the Jupyter notebooks in Azure Sentinel, and you can build this connection directly from the Jupyter notebooks. So your visualization of the information is directly embedded into the Jupyter notebooks, which is a great way to see the data. Now, these are the references and resources which I thought to pull together because it's important to know where to go and look for this information. So once you get a copy of the slide, you will be able to get these links and you will be able to get away straight on to the Microsoft Graph security APIs. Any question about the introduction of the security graph API before I go to the integration piece? I'm going to pause for 2 seconds. Okay, let's keep going. Now, as we talked about, like there are various ways as what type of the information the graph can provide, and the various ways as you can connect the Microsoft Graph API in your different variety of systems. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about the integration more in detail. So, very first place is you can use the supported integration options, which is around the capabilities in the connector framework. Let me just open that up here. Yeah, there's no question. Quick. Yeah, I thought there was a question. Sorry about that. So we can use the supported integration options like the connectors and direct coding where it is available directly. Then we can use the native integration and connectors built by the Microsoft partners. So as I talked about, Splunk is a SIEM platform similar to Azure Sentinel, and the SIEM platforms can use their built-in connectors. So Splunk has created like connectors for the reading Office 365 alerts, the Azure AD alerts, and these connectors are built on the Microsoft Graph API. You will see a lot of third parties are now building their own connectors either to consume information or provide information in the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 using the Graph API. So you will see a two-way communication happening between Microsoft systems and third-party systems. Then there are some connectors which are built by Microsoft. So what Microsoft did is work with those ISVs who like Palo Alto or other ISVs, and in systems like Azure Sentinel or other systems where the security monitoring can happen, Microsoft is providing those connectors. And Microsoft built those connectors with the ISVs and made available in the Azure Sentinel and other places. So you will be able to go quickly consume the information in and out of the Microsoft 365 using the Microsoft Graph API. You will not know that whether they are using any deprecated endpoints which are still supported for backward compatibility, or they are using the Graph API. But I can tell you now, the most of the connectors and solutions available are built on the Microsoft Graph API. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to support the modern authentication, which is MF-based authentication. I'm just keeping a tab on the time as well. So some of these connectors are available here. So you will see that in the SIEM as Splunk or QRadar. If I remember, QRadar is IBM or someone else product. They have their own connectors. So this is connectors which are provided by the third party, but developed on top of the Microsoft Graph API. We know ServiceNow very well. ServiceNow is working with Microsoft Teams on multiple endpoints. They are using Microsoft's search, using the Graph API and also the security endpoints using the Graph API. Now, where the service now can help here. So as I talked about that, if there is an alert in the system, and then based on the Power Automate flow, you identify this could be a high severity impact in the organization, and somebody has to look upon it in next 15 minutes, pretty much. A lot of time, what happens, you start to track things in the Sentinel or in the Splunk platform, but using the ServiceNow connector, you can straight away generate a ticket in the ServiceNow platform and assign it to very specific high monitoring teams, and they can act upon it straight away. And you have a traceability as what was done when it was raised, and to fix that alert and threat mitigation. So this is where it is providing two-way integration using the Microsoft Graph-based connector. So consuming information from ServiceNow to search, but then also using the Graph API to read and push the alert data back to ServiceNow. The Soul platform, which is the Sentinel, it uses the Azure Logic Apps and Microsoft Flow or Power Automate now. The old name is still existing in the documentation, so I just kept that. The Power Automate, the automation side, you can use the PowerShell module. So Microsoft Graph comes in the PowerShell SDKs. You can use them directly. So as an ID admin, if I have to do something in the security and compliance space, I can use my PowerShell favorite language to do the things as required. As I talked about, the Power Platform connectors are available for Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. You can use the same connector to generate reporting in the Power BI platform itself. Cool. Now, the third one is the entities. So let me see if we have any question here. I'm sorry, my Windows 11 is just pushing the screen up and down. I'm just going to look at if we have any questions here. Okay. Can share the presentation slides. Yes, I will be able to share the presentation slides after the session. So I will give it to the organizer team, and they will be able to do that. Great. There is no question, but feel free to ask me if you have any question around this. Now, we were talking about the Microsoft Graph API, and in one of the slides previously around the introduction, I showed you that there are multiple entities or the objects in the Microsoft 365 system where Microsoft Graph API can go and talk about it. And this is where you will be able to see that Microsoft Graph can do a read, write, update operations. And there are various endpoints or the systems in the Microsoft 365 where Microsoft Graph can do integration directly. I'm going to bring those entities here. Okay, so I can classify these entities in 5 categories right now, and I can talk about the getting alerts. Now the alerts can come from multiple systems, but let's wait for the next slides to come. So you can look upon alerts, you can look upon the information protection, you can look upon the threat indicators, you can look upon the security actions and the secure score. Let's go and deep dive in each of them. Now, the very first thing is the alerts. What really we call an alert? Why not we are calling a message or a line item or anything? Now, what happens? There is a sort of a defined system, and as soon as there is something happens which is not in that defined system, Microsoft 365 picks that as an alert or sort of a warning message. And what that means is, even though that alert may be a false positive, that means you can ignore it completely, but the platform responsibility is to tell you that something is happening differently. Now, in this case, so for example, if I'm a new customer, I have just purchased Microsoft 365, and I'm going to use the Azure AD to log in. And the first time very much I log in, it's going to pick up that, okay, there is a customer coming up, there is a login coming up in the system from maybe, like, say, Australia location, and the tenant is in Australia as well. But tenant never know that there is a person who purchased this tenant lives in particularly in a specific IP address range based location. Now, what's going to happen in the day one? It's going to throw the alert for everybody who is coming in and logging in. That means you have to make sure that those users who are logging in are coming correctly. They are the correct users. There is no deviation from their locations to what Azure already picked up locations. And then over the period of time, the platform learns, and this is where the artificial intelligence and machine learning comes into the picture, that these are the users. These are the users log in from these range of IP addresses every time over a period of 14 days and 21 days. That means they are the genuine users because no action has been taken by the administrator so far. And those alerts will start to disappear or become low priority alert. They will not be a high priority alert. But as soon as, for example, I travel to, like, say, India, to my country for some time and stay there and try to log in, based on the configuration, it's going to generate an alert as well. Or if I have defined my privilege identity management and user identity management, it's going to maybe block me, or it's going to maybe ask me to reset my password, because the platform is detecting that the user has been logging in from Australian IP address, but now suddenly is trying to log in from an Indian IP address. It may be an alert to the system that the user account is compromised and somebody is trying to impersonate user. And these alerts can come from variety of systems. So things like your Azure AD, your Azure Security Center, identity protection, MCAS, AIP, and Sentinel. So these systems will tell the platform that there is an alert and you have to act upon it. Azure Sentinel is a sort of an aggregation SIEM platform, so you can see pretty much all the alerts coming from different providers into the Sentinel, and you can work upon it accordingly. So that's where the alert comes in. So don't worry that the alert can be of low, medium, high priority, and it is defined by the system AI and ML. You can train the AI and ML over a period of time, and then you can reduce the false positive. And that's where it takes some time to learn that machine learning. The next one is the information protection, and that's sort of my favorite area right now. In the cloud, the identity becomes your perimeter security rather than network and other as in on-premises. And the online cloud platform has only one thing apart from the user accounts, is the information. Whether that information is structured, defined, derived, whatever it will be, the information is very important for every organization, whether it's a customer information, personal information, corporate information, and then you have to really protect that information. Now, there are various ways in the Microsoft 365 platform as what you can do about it. The very first thing is information classification and protection. So you use something called as Microsoft Information Protection labels, and you apply them to those files and content. And you can apply them to teams and sites and groups as well. And then you have to start working with these information assets as where it travels. So for example, files can be on my PC, it can be on my mobile devices, it can be in the browser. And I have to make sure that my files are not getting infected, which means the virus is not propagating back to the cloud somewhere or some other PCs who is downloading that file. So information protection goes and then look upon how you set up your MIP, AIP labels, what sort of a threat it is generating, because as soon as somebody access a particular file as highly confidential file, it straight away logs an alert and says that, okay, a particular person has been trying to access a highly confidential file. And then you can review that alert and say that why this person is particularly accessing this file, because the file may be related to finance data, maybe corporate data, which is highly confidential in market, and the person does not belongs to any of the department which needs to access that file. The file doesn't have the security in it, but you may have encryption and other sort of a label-based security. And then you start to investigate and see if the user have tried to download the file and if he has tried sending it over to personal devices or personal email address. And that's where your threat assessment comes into the picture. The other piece is the threat indicators. Now, we call it as TI, threat indicators, a lot of time. In this case, it represents that, okay, what sort of a threat may be possible into the environment and where it can compromise that data. So around malicious files, somebody sending you an email with malicious links, somebody sending you attachments, somebody sending you the information or emails from those blocked domain or IP addresses which are known for the malicious attacks. And Microsoft has a security team, threat monitoring team, which also update these informations in the platform. And the platform AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning can pick up those details and tell you that as soon as you click a link in an email, first it's going to go and check in the Microsoft Defender for Office 365 if this link is safe. And if this link is safe, it's going to give you the URL back and the browser will open the web page. But if the platform detects that link is malicious and has been reported as malicious, it's available in the platform, it will be blocked from opening. So that's where it starts to use these indicators of various types to protect you from the threats. Now, the next part is you detect something is happening, and then you have to take an action upon it. So, for example, you got a file, you got a URL, or something is coming from a specific IP addresses. What you have to do is straight away invoke an action for a specific provider and define the action to cancel it, stop receiving emails from that particular IP address or domain. And straight away, your organization will get into the protection mode. This is where generally I recommend to have something called Sentinel as a SIEM platform and act upon the indicators and integrate security actions with it. Because in the Sentinel as a SIEM platform, it can bring not just one particular source alerts, but it can bring a lot of alerts from different systems. And what that means is you will be able to go and look upon the correlated and connected information easier and then act upon it. So you will be able to take an action much better when you have context information. You have more information around the event, how it is happening, and how it has been propagated to different systems. And then you will say, okay, I may have to block emails, may have to block maybe specific devices and maybe specific user accounts. But if you take security action just based on a specific source, you will be just able to block the emails incoming, but you may not be able to protect the devices or the user accounts then. So you have to work in a coordinated and collaborative style here as well so that you take better actions. The next one is secure score. Now, whenever we talk about the security score, my favorite correlation to this is about our marks in the school. So we know that when we were in school, we used to go and give exam. And then at the end of the exam, we basically get a scoring marks that whatever we did and where we stand. Microsoft is giving you a platform which is open for configuration, which means you can do a security-driven configuration or you may not. And what happens at the end of the day is if you don't do a security-driven configuration, you open up the spaces for attackers. And at the end of the day, if attackers get into your environment or organization successfully, you will say, okay, I purchased M365, but I got hacked, and then where is the support available? So what happens in this case, what Microsoft is doing, they prepare something called as a security report, a score report, With this, they include a lot of information. They look upon as what services you are using. So, for example, Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, you are using mobile devices, you are creating files in the SharePoint. And then Microsoft says, okay, you're using these services. Now, for protection of these services, you need MFA, you need MIP labels, you need DLP rules, you need your Exchange Online protection. And this is where you start to set up your environment and say that now my score is starting from zero, but it's improving over the period of time. And at the sort of end of this exercise, you reach a number which is satisfactory without blocking the business because you really don't want to stop your working. And you see, okay, if I'm not doing a particular security configuration, what are my other options are? So you can be using more than one security products in your environment. So Microsoft can provide a specific security, but you can cover up the same threat or alert using different security products. So you have to balance out yourself as how this thing will work. And these are the great starting points as a security score report or compliance score report to start internally and uplift your security and compliance posture well, without much of the knowledge. It comes with a detailed information, so it is easier to use this. So this is about the entities. Now I'm going to take a pause here and ask if you have any questions before I jump into a demo and talk about some of those reference links. I'm looking on the left side because I have the chat window here rather than straight here where I'm sharing the screen. So feel free to use that. I'm just going to keep moving my head for next 5 seconds. Okay, I'm just reading the messages here. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of effort by the organizing team. Thanks, team, for doing the recording and taking up the content from each presenter and making it available to the audience later. Any questions so far from anyone? So I believe everybody is clear about what's happening. They have used in the past. Okay, no questions. Then we will just jump into the demo here. So in the demo, I'm gonna share my screen, but these are some of the information protection details which I was talking about as what you can do and you can use about it. Some of these I have not configured it, so you will not see them happening, but I will show you as where you can look upon these details and what configuration you need in your environment to play with it. And a lot of time you will hear something called as E5 license because in the Microsoft Cloud's world, you have E1, E3, and E5, and then there are add-ons available. So what these E1, E3, and E5 is, they are license bundles, and each license bundle comes with specific services. The E5 being one of the top one, depending on the cost of the reason and the organization, you get pretty much everything bundled in it. What that means is a lot of times security and compliance come in tiers. So they will come plan 1, plan 2. The plan 1 may be available to you in your E3 license, but the plan 2 capabilities will be available in E5 license. And you will see there are different capabilities in E3 and E5. I will not go deeper in the licensing, but just to give you an idea that when you talk to customers, you make sure that you are talking a service feature or a capability which is bundled in their license. Otherwise, make sure that you inform them that we are talking about this capability which is available in this licensing model around the security, so that they are aware that if they would like to utilize or use this capability, they have a proper license before you go and say that, okay, we thought we're going to do this, but you don't have license, we can't do this. So you will see things like your automation around the threats management and attack surface reduction to minimize the security risk. All they are available in E5. So if an organization which has E5, you can go and openly talk about all the capabilities. That's very important to know. Now I'm going to share my screen with the browser and talk about some of those details. Okay, I'm on a big monitor, so let me zoom in a little bit around this. I believe this is good enough to look at the screen. Maybe I can go one more. Okay, so the very first thing for the administrators are to look upon the security and compliance things in the Microsoft 365. As what happens is to go and look upon in the admin center, and on the admin center you will see all your security and compliance spaces. So I'm going to just pull up security and compliance spaces from here. Now you will see that I am jumping between the security and compliance portal in the Office 365, and also I'm jumping into the Azure portal, because in terms of the security, how it plays with M365 and beyond it, it goes across the platform. And I will talk about it now. Let me load it up here. Okay, while it's loading, let me zoom in here as well. It's taking a bit time. Let me go here. So now here, if you will see, it is in the security and compliance centers. You will see the alerts. Now these alerts, now Microsoft is doing a lot of work on these dashboards and details and reports. You will see these information keep changing. And this is where you have to keep going back and forth and keep looking what's changing, what's new, and how you use it. But if you are sort of a lost anywhere, you can always use the Microsoft documentation and read through what has changed, because documentation is generally updated. Now, if you see here, there are alerts coming through from different systems. They can be available here, and Microsoft is trying to bring all the Microsoft 365 based alerts into this platform. Then you can create new alert policies, and this is where I'm going to talk about this, what type of the information can be here. So these are the system ones, but when you click on a new alert policy, for example, I'm going to talk a scenario which we did for a customer. When we create teams, we know sometimes we can put governance in teams, but sometimes we just want to keep it open, let everybody go and create teams. But when a new team is created, as an administrator, until you go to the team's center, admin center, you will not know if a new team has been created. So what you can do is you can create a new alert whenever there is a new Office 365 group is created, you will be notified. And that means you don't have to go and find out what's happening in the organization. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to keep it medium because it's, or maybe even low, because it's just information. And I'm going to say information governance. And now here, I can say what has to happen. So you will see that there is tons of the options available in this. So first is the common user activity. So things like shared file externally, granted admin exchange, DLP policy match, or e-discovery. Then we have file and folder activities. Then we have file sharing activities. Then we have synchronizing events. Then we have some created group. So that means whenever creates a group for this, you will know notification. Then you can add different things about it. And then how you want to do a summary, you want to do every time, and then you set up your recipients. Then you review your settings. Now this is easy. Now, in this case, I really don't have to define a separate specific things to manage my new team's creation. And as part of the governance, this is really important. Now, when this alert is generated here, what I can do is I can create some automation in the Power Automate and maybe apply some security settings to that team using the Power Automate and Microsoft Graph API altogether. And that's where I can start with the contextual information in the alerts and go and invoke my actions. Could be around disabling external sharing in the teams or anything. Now, apart from this, I'm just going to cancel it up here. Apart from this, when you saw, let me go back here, when you saw that we have files sharing alerts as well. Now, generally I'm just going to cancel it. Now, generally that alert is already available. As soon as somebody shares a file externally, that could go as a permission category, and you will straight away know that somebody is trying to share a file to external user, and you will be able to see which file, which location, and to whom it is shared. And then you can use your automation to manage that external sharing. The same way you have multiple managed alert scenarios. They are more of advanced, and that has been moved to the MCAS. MCAS is altogether a different topic, so I will leave that here. But then your classifications. So let's say here you have sensitivity labels. Now this is jumping into the new portal now. So you have your sensitivity labels here defined. Yeah. And you will see that, okay, some of them are here and some of them are in the Azure. Now, Azure one is deprecated. You're not recommended to use them. You have to define here. And this is where you will be able to go and define all these information protections and compliance side of the world. And again, everything is accessible via Graph API. Okay, let me refresh it. While it is refreshing, I'm going to talk about the Microsoft Graph Explorer. I'm not sure if you have looked upon something called as Microsoft Graph Explorer in the past, but this is a play area. I call it generally a graph playground, because here what I can do is I can play with the Graph Explorer to create calls and see the results without writing the program. I don't have to really create a program for it. Now, in this, what I will suggest is, if you see, I'm using something called as my demo tenants, and here you can use the developer program to get a new demo tenant and play with it. But before you go and use these security things, obviously you have to generate some data in the backend to look upon it. And once you do this, I'm going to talk about the documentation as well, because this is important to know. Now, what happens in the Microsoft Graph API, as I mentioned, the team is working tirelessly and they are bringing new things every day. And in this, I'm looking at the beta API, because beta has more information than V1 or general available. Now, when you see here as a security overview, you will see that there are actions, there are alerts, and then alerts can come from multiple sources. And what you can do is get alert, patch alert, subscribe to alerts. So if you need to build a subscription system to get alerts from specific things, you can build that as well. Patch alert means once you receive an alert, you can update the alert before sending it to someone else. So you will be able to add more contextual data. Then you have attack simulation and trainings. You have information protection, secure score, threat indicators, and these are the common scenarios, what you can do about it. If you want to read through more details, you can just go down and read more details about it. Now I'm going to show you some scenarios here. Now in this is my Azure platform. And as I talked about, the Azure and M365 goes very hand to hand. In this, what I have did in the conditional access policies, I have defined some locations as what I would like to use. And also, I have defined some Azure Sentinel alerts here. These alerts are generated because I logged in today morning. So if I go and show you the incidents, you will see that there was an incident. Just you will see that okay, there was a update time today, and then there was details about it, and you can see the tracking of the alert. Rather than having a assignment here, I may use the ServiceNow integrator to connect it with my ServiceNow system and then manage this there. I'm going to leave it here. Now I'm going to come back to the Graph Explorer. Now I'm going to use quickly my history because I've been just playing with it. So first I'm going to go and look upon my security alerts, and I have in the history, so it's easier for me. So I go and build this V1 security alerts top one. I'm just looking at one as of now. I may call more than once, but if you look upon here, it's bringing up me a MCAS alert generate, which is where it's saying that on November 21st will update its IP addresses in connection. Sorry, let me just go up there. And that alert is because that if I'm using AMCAS and I'm using IP addresses, I have to go and remediate that solution so that it is continuing to work. If I go and look upon maybe top 5, I don't know if I have top 5 alerts or 5 alerts in the system. I may look upon it very quickly. No, I have only one alert as of now in the MCAS. So it is coming only one. Then I can go and look upon my secure score, which is going to be very poor because I have never done it. So I'm going to just run it again. Now here you will see that there is active user counts. The current score is just 15 numbers, very poor. If I have to manage it, then it's going to look upon the licensed user counts, the maximum score which can come up, and it's going to talk about based on the industry, based on the total seats, and then it's going to tell me the scoring as what's happening. So things like identity, I need to enable MFA for my users. I can go and have a one global admin rather than having multiple. Then tighten the security by the third-party integration apps only. So it gives me this record. Now what I can do is, because this is coming from this Graph API call, and I'm just picking top 5. What you can do is you can connect this same API in the Power BI. And I've been generating this scorecard in Power BI a lot of time. And the client can see straight away that what those major impacting areas are and what those top priority can be. Now, this is where the policies, but this is the named locations which were coming. I'm going to just run it up now. So as I have created Australia location, so it's coming up here. Then I was talking about the alerts. No, which is the one here? This is the threat indicators. So right now I don't have any threat indicators, which is good. So this is where it goes and query the information. And then if you look upon the sample queries here, these are the sample queries available in this. You can write your own as well. You will see that you have a patch alert, which is the update alert. So what that means is you can look upon this and add more data to it so that once you send this alert to someone else, they will have a better contextual information. So that's where it will be able to go post, patch, and do more things than just get data. So that's where the demo comes in. Any question, because after this, like I have to repeat that, feel free to join as many sessions as you like, because that is gonna increase your chance to win prizes on day 2, which is tomorrow, and we'll be able to help you with that. So I'm gonna now pause here my session and stop talking and give you a chance to ask questions. So any questions from anyone? I'm gonna be looking at the window. So there were 2 questions around the presentations and the recording, so that has been sorted. Thank you for putting that forms link so that everybody can go and fill that up. Any question from anyone? I may just stop the sharing and bring the Teams screen in my front. So No questions. The session was great, feels like, or was it not good enough? Thank you again for putting the link. I will wait for the next 5 minutes here, and I'm happy to answer in the window. If not, then I will just leave the space to give the next presenter to come up and start their session. Okay. Do- I can leave the session. So is everybody okay to end the session here? If you okay, there is something coming up. Okay, let me see. Thank you. Thanks for organizing this, and really appreciate organizer a team effort. It's very massive time consuming and dedication required to do these events. Okay, I don't see any questions coming up. In that case, we can conclude the session here. Really appreciate everyone for your time and joining my session. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to touch base me on LinkedIn or use my details as available to connect and ask questions if you have any time.